We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
We've seen the law of the land employed against politicians and political causes. But is this a modern aberration, especially in light of the attempted indictment of former President Donald Trump by Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg? Now, we're back with Tim Donner and Scott DeCosenza to shed a little light on the otherwise dark underbelly of American jurisprudence. Now, it seems to me, Scott, that even the appearance of weaponizing American justice comes with some notable downsides. What does this do to people's faith in the justice system?
Well, we're only going to really discover this in hindsight, but it is so, I mean, just to the pit of my stomach, it makes me just feel so awful about the disgrace that Mr. Bragg has exhibited here, and contempt for, the processes that I hold dear. That, the administration of justice is not supposed to be imposed for political use, but it seems to me that there's no other rational explanation for this. If we take any human being, any American, and we just say, let's examine, and we'll give to every prosecutor wherever they ever lived or did business, and just give them almost unlimited resources, just go through and just decide maybe they broke some law somewhere. One of the things that's not talked about too is some of these progressive anti-Trump forces have supplied with their own money personnel for these DA offices to go after these people. So it's like, it's the total politicization of the criminal justice system, which
it's the GoFundMe justice system.
I mean, it's disheartening. It's really horrible. But the people get, the justice that they vote for and they deserve by their participation in the political process. New Yorkers put Alvin Bragg in. It seems crazy to me, but I don't think they need a recount in that election. He clearly won it, and they're getting what they voted for.
I mean, here's the thing. People in New York voted Bill de Blasio in as mayor. They complained about him constantly. Then they reelected him, and they complained some more. And I basically said, you don't have any right to complain. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So de Blasio got reelected, and it was a disaster. If there's one good thing about this, Mark, I think it's that it will shed light on what George Soros is doing to upend the entire prosecutorial system in the United States by funding to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars. He has brilliantly managed to steer district attorney races across the country in different localities.
Tim, I have to interrupt and say you're wrong by using the word steer. He has installed district attorneys across the country with his...
Well, I'll say steer only because they do actually have to be voted in. But, you're seeing the specter of races where ordinarily, say, $10,000 is spent on a campaign, and these guys, Soros-backed DA candidates, will spend $2-3 million. And they'll do it in Democratic cities. So if this can shed some light on what George Soros has done, for example, in Philadelphia with Larry Krasner, who Scott knows well, the district attorney there, we saw that the district attorney in San Francisco was recalled, as a matter of fact.
Boudin, wasn't it?
Chesa Boudin was, but
all of Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C., have Soros DAs.
And people don't even know that. And I think it's up to the responsible media at this point to do expansive examinations of the Soros role in taking crimes that used to be crimes and aren't crimes anymore, because the Trump thing is one thing, but it's how Alvin Bragg diminished so many felonies down to the point of misdemeanors so that violent criminals are being released. And he's going after Trump for the wrong line on a form to report to the government.
Well,
I think everybody can see it clear.
It isn't a wrong line. It's that he intentionally entered this as something that it wasn't. Right. And that's the crime. And Mark, right. I have long championed, I don't know that I've ever convinced a single person that this is the way to go, but I have long championed a constitutional amendment that would prohibit any prosecutor from seeking or winning any other elected office, because they use their prosecutorial offices and stand on the backs of criminal defendants to gain further office. And before it was Trump, I noticed it as I was, becoming a lawyer, is just the drug war stuff. You see it a lot of times on these human trafficking cases where they bust a lot of prostitution and then yell about human trafficking, but they don't actually make a human trafficking charge. But they're using the power of their office to then become the governor or a member of Congress or something like that.
Or vice president of the United States.
Yeah,
I think we're making a direct comparison there.
I think that becomes particularly troublesome when you consider that.
By the way, Scott, you have a convert. I agree completely. Completely.
I'll mark you down. But
yes, I've supported that ever since Scott first brought it up. And when you're talking, the trouble is when you're talking about positions where by necessity you have to engage in selective prosecution. You think it from the Justice Department all the way down to local DAs. They can't prosecute every single crime. So they have to select. And it's what crimes they select that tells the story of their stewardship. And with Alvin Bragg, I'll tell you, the people of New York are walking in the type of fear that I haven't seen since maybe the 1970s because of the criminals that are being set loose by Alvin Bragg's ideas on what criminal justice should be. He is a poster child for George Soros and his theory of criminal justice.
Well, let's jump in on that, Tim. So obviously we've seen George Soros-backed district attorneys put into office around the country, or elected into office around the country, thanks in large part, we would assume, to the money that he's provided, because if the money didn't help, then he wouldn't be giving it, right? But
correct.
In terms of value for money, isn't a district attorney's race, isn't it basically the best return on investment that you can get for your money in terms of reshaping America to your will?
I got to jump in and just say George Soros got the best ROI that you could imagine on this.
Yes.
I mean, he spent pennies on the dollar for what he got. It was an amazing that he saw the opportunity and he seized it without really much in the way of resistance, at least early on. It's a remarkable story.
Yeah, it's a great, and the success of it is what really makes it so dangerous, because then this is a model that's going to be followed across the country, because it worked, didn't it?
It did. For $10 to $20 million, he's locked up some of the biggest and most populous cities in the country. Now, I have a bit of an existential question, if you gentlemen don't mind. Can politics in present day America exist without an army of lawyers? Scott?
I hope not. Actually, that's the opposite of the truth. I would hope so, but no, because that's where there are gains to be made, and people who are, when you see how party politics works in this country, you can think of the forces that are amassed on one side, and if they think they can gain advantage by using lawyers, there's so much on the line. One of the things that those of us that are small government advocates talk about is that the more that the government has their hands in, that just becomes the more reason to try to control the keys to the government, right? If everything we do, from the car we drive and what powers it and our internet and every little jot and tittle of life, the more the government's involved in it, well, that just becomes more reason to get a say in, what's allowed and what's not. So I think it's just going to accelerate rather than decelerate.
So it's pretty much the expansion of government is essentially a full employment act for lawyers around the world. Now,
yes.
coming up in just a moment, we'll be picking apart the polls on Trump and DeSantis in 2024, the Republican primaries. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5. produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5 is the left-free zone, hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner, joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors, deconstructing leftist narratives, debating the hot topics, and remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe
You only
space.
did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5.